The bottom line is, did the defendant have a reasonable fear of her life? And look, by all accounts, the answer is no.
Stand your ground question in case after woman fatally shot black neighbor. Now, this is what I'm hearing. Apparently, the black lady in this thumbnail, we're about to play the video. Apparently, this black lady has very young children, and they have big front yards around in this neighborhood, right? The lady's children so happen to cross over to that lady's, the white lady's yard. And I'm sorry I got to use black and white in this, but they're going to definitely talk about black and white all over the internet, IG and whatnot. That's all they're talking about. White lady shot a black woman. Why won't they arrest her? Black woman lost her life. And like, it's taking it somewhere I don't want to take it. All right, just want to say that it's taking it somewhere I don't want to take it.
I want to bring in Dave Ehrenberg now, state attorney for Palm Beach County, Florida. Dave, this is a tragedy, no matter how you look at it. And we're still going to learn more details about exactly what transpired in this doorway. But the stand your ground law is being questioned once again after some recent cases. What does it say in Florida, particular to this case?
Yeah, good to be with you, Marnie. Stand your ground exists in 30 states. In Florida, it essentially takes the castle doctrine anywhere you are, which says that you don't have a duty to retreat if someone is threatening your life. You have to have a reasonable fear that your life is in danger, and then you can meet force with force. You can't bring a gun to a fist fight unless you're in a battle, perhaps with an MMA fighter who can kill you. A woman going to your front door, even if she's knocking aggressively, you can't shoot that person dead with a firearm. So the sheriff is right here that no matter what happened at that door, you can't just shoot through the door and kill someone who's unarmed. And that's why stand your ground does not apply. But it is a controversial law in Florida, and it has been broadened by the state legislature in recent years.
Now, they're talking about the stand your ground case because that lady right there, she was just arrested finally. She was arrested. They're trying to figure out how they're going to charge her. But what she ended up doing was the black lady, because I don't know their names. I got to say black and white, unfortunately. If I knew their names, I would say that. One of the kids who was playing in the lady's yard ended up leaving her iPad in the lady's yard because the lady was fussing at the children and made them leave her yard. Get off my front porch. I mean, get off my yard. You're not supposed to be in my yard. Go somewhere, blah, 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 blah. So the kids left the yard, but they also left their iPad. Mom then went over to the house and said, "Where's my daughter's iPad? Give me the iPad." She's knocking on the door. "Give me my daughter's iPad." Instead of the lady cracking the door and handing the iPad, the lady ended up shooting her gun through the door at this lady, while her kids was they was standing nearby them, waiting on their iPad to be retrieved from the neighbor's house. And instead of them getting the iPad, now their mom is dead and gone. So that's what they're talking about right now.
So these two had a long feud, right? Going back a couple of years. How might that play into this?
You know, it really doesn't matter unless the defendant here had reason to believe that the victim was dangerous, was armed. If, for example, the homeowner knew that that the victim had a long criminal history and was violent, that could come into play. But just the fact, and by the way, that we don't have any information of that. By all accounts, this victim was a peaceful person who was trying to protect her kids. And it was the defendant here who was the aggressor, who was one throwing a skate at the children, who was allegedly saying racial slurs. So
there's that. So there's more information. Apparently she was saying racial slurs to the kids, and she threw a skate at them, telling them to get out of her yard. Now, here's a quick incident, real quick. I was involved in a situation in my own backyard, and if I would have gotten shot, I think that my neighbor would have been in the right. And I'm gonna tell you why. Because when it comes to my kids, I don't play. I told y'all before, I'm not as approachable as people actually believe. I'm family first and God first, period. All right. But I grew up in a very knucklehead way. I'm just gonna let y'all know I came a long way from where I grew up. So when I had family over the house, I had people over my backyard in our older house. I had kids in the backyard playing, my kids and their cousins, and they were playing Frisbee. And the Frisbee accidentally went over the fence, all right, to our next door neighbor. Our next door neighbor is an older gentleman, not senior citizen or nothing like that, just a big guy. And he's like 15 years my senior. I'm 45. He's probably like 60. Then I was like in my late 30s and probably like 39. So he was younger then. So instead of him just throwing the Frisbee back over there and fussing at him, like, yo, stop throwing stuff in my yard. You know what I mean? Be more careful and all that other stuff, because he has a right to say that. He's an adult. It takes a village to raise these children. I'm firm on that. I don't have an issue with other adults saying something to my kids. Like, you're making a mess. Stay out of my yard. Stop throwing things over here. Feel free to do that. But one thing he did was he was cussing at them. He was cussing at them and I take that as extreme disrespect. Only I can speak to my kids in a certain way, right? So I asked him politely. I came out there and I went over to his fence and I asked him to stop using that language around my kids. Instead of him stopping, he got more emboldened because he's standing on his side of the fence and I'm standing on mine. And he said another curse word. As long as they stay on their side and they stop throwing sugar honey iced tea over here and bull this and blah. He said like 2 or 3 more curse words. So me being the person that I am, I hopped up over his fence and I told him, I said, yo, I said, don't speak like that around my kids. Instead of him backing down, he swung at me. He missed. I connected. He ran into his garage, grabbed a couple of the hammers or whatever, and then he called the police. All right. So I'd skipped a couple of things, but he ended up calling the police. Now, me jumping into his yard and me being an aggressor at that point, he had a right to do to me what he wanted to do. All right. Not go overboard, but he could have felt like his life was threatened and did that. Obviously, he did feel like his life was threatened when he called the police on me. All right. This lady right here didn't have any reason to feel like her life was being threatened when a lady was coming to her house to retrieve her kid's iPad. Now, if you're calling my kids racial slurs, I'm not thinking that the black lady was just all super nice. Like, could you please give me my baby's iPad? Thank you very much. We're just going to go back over to our house and not bother you anymore. No, she did not do that. I'm almost certain that she went over there with her expletives and she's like, what did you call my babies? What did you say? Did you call them this? Come outside. She probably was a bit aggressive. But here's the thing. When you write a check, your ass can't cash, you got to deal with that. So neighbor, you did those things, you got to deal with that. Do not be a person that feel like they can say and do whatever they want to say and do simply because you have a gun and you can do something because the law will back you up if I do it. No, if you're not really about that life, relax. Chill yourself out. Stop being so damn ignorant. If the other lady, the shooter, would not have been so disrespectful to the children in the first place, this wouldn't have happened. If the children weren't playing in her front yard, this wouldn't have happened. There's so many different things that went down that could have prevented this. If the woman, because only the children are the witnesses of this whole event. There's not another adult that's a witness of this whole event. So let's move forward.
All that could come into play, but the bottom line is, did the defendant have a reasonable fear of her life? And look, by all accounts, the answer is no.
Well, only she can know that, right? I mean, if you have somebody trying to break in your door, if you tell them, get off my property, does that change anything? If you don't get off my front door, my porch, I'll shoot you.
That could change things, yes, if there's evidence of that. But the sheriff did an investigation. Apparently, there's no evidence that the victim was trying to break in, or else that would be a consideration. Look, if someone is at your door who's uninvited and is banging down your door and you say, get off my property, and then threaten to shoot, You can take that in consideration. Now, does it mean you'll get stand your ground? It's up to a judge. And then ultimately it's up to a jury if it goes to trial. But all these facts come into play. And apparently, according to the sheriff in his investigation, there is no stand your ground here.
And how have some of these past cases played out in court for the defendants? Have any won? Talk about some of those cases.
Yeah, some of the defendants have won. Now, it's tough for prosecutors because originally stand your ground was meant to say your home is your castle and anywhere else you go. If you are in reasonable fear of your life, you can meet force with force. You can defend yourself. You have no duty to retreat. That's where the sheriff says, yes, I agree with the law. What's happened, though, in recent years is that the Florida legislature, at the request of the NRA, has expanded stand your ground. Now it's up to prosecutors to prove that you weren't in reasonable fear of your life. And you have a separate hearing. You go to a judge. And if the judge disagrees with prosecutors, case closed, there is no trial, it's over. And that's why there was a delay in the arrest in this case, because law enforcement was required to investigate, because the burden is now on us, on law enforcement and prosecutors. It's a big boost for defendants who use guns in their mind to defend themselves. They get the benefit of the doubt now.
Thank you for watching. Go to
Okay. That was a good back and forth. Now, I wish they would have had more information on exactly what happened, so it doesn't seem like what I'm saying was wrong. But it does have a little bit of information right here. Hopefully, I can show it to you. It says a Florida woman who confronted a neighbor who had thrown an object at her children was shot and killed through the door of the residence, authority says. It's a case that is complicated by the state's stand your ground law. All right, so the attorney was, and I believe that this lady, I don't know her name, Marnie Hugh, I think she asked him some really good questions. She was coming from a perspective of, what if your life was you really did feel like your life was in jeopardy? Now, that's something that you can't prove, but I think that a lot of people use that as a scapegoat. I think a lot of people know you can't prove that you felt your life was in danger, so you shot. Yeah. I threw a skate at your kids, I took their iPad, and then I came in the house and grabbed my gun. I did not open the door when you came to retrieve it, and you sound really, really mean when you came to retrieve it too. So not only did I not give you the iPad back, but I shot you through the door, and I said that I felt like my life was in danger. There's so many ways to look at this, bro. But a lot of people, I'm gonna tell you this right now, all over the internet, all over Instagram, is black woman shot by a white neighbor through her door, and the white neighbor didn't even get arrested. That's why we gotta go out there with picket signs and we gotta protest. We gotta make sure that they hear our voices, because black voters matter, black people matter. And then they finally arrested her. About time. It was because we made noise, but they just gonna let her walk because she's white. So this is turning into, now as a matter of fact, not turning into, it's already turned into a race issue. So that's why I wanted to check it out. I want to hear what y'all got to say about this.